Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the PricePlow Podcast. We are more than honored to have Dr. Garrett Smith, known as the Nutrition Detective, here on the PricePlow Podcast to talk mainly about his voyage into the world of vitamin A toxicity. And so Dr. Smith has been a leader in this space and kind of is opening up a whole new paradigm of like medical discovery here with respect to disease. And so Dr. Garrett, Dr. Smith, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a background in sports nutrition training before you became a practitioner and everything. So welcome to the show. Give us the introduction and then let's eventually just get into the weeds here.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me on. So my journey into this came about by, when I started at 11 years old, I started kind of lifting dumbbells in my house and training like that. And then that eventually led to, so that leads to nutrition, right? Fitness tends to lead to nutrition. And then I started noticing as a teen that there was certain foods that would affect how I felt. Especially one of my big memories was I would drink a glass of milk. And even before I had finished, drinking the glass of milk, I'd start to get really phlegmy and snotty. And so early on, fitness led to nutrition. Of course, I swear I remember when pure encapsulations first came out. I was getting mailers and it was this crazy European supplement company and all this stuff. And so I was into supplements fairly early. I was very good. Funny story. I used to take Flintstone vitamins as a kid, and I saw my parents swallowing pills, and I thought that's a skill I'm going to have to learn. I was not a normal kid, and so then I started swallowing the Flintstone vitamins whole. Now, if you know how sharp those are, get very good at swallowing pills very quickly on those, or you are gashing your throat. Anyway, so there was that. That led to, I became the bodybuilding supplement stuff. I worked in a supplement store when I went to college, I was a personal trainer. Became a personal trainer at age 18, and then got a degree in physiology and a minor in chemistry and nutrition. And then after school, I worked in a supplement store, and then I eventually found out about naturopathic medical school. I always wanted to be in medicine. My dad was a dentist, but I didn't want to be in conventional medicine. That was all I knew. And I found out about naturopathic medical school, and they were licensed in Arizona. And next thing I know, I'm there, and then I'm out. I've been in practice 18 years now. Been through, some of my big fads that I went through in my practice was, I went through the candida phase and the heavy metal phase and the low carb, carbs cause everything bad phase. And I went through all these phases that a lot of people go through until I always felt that there was some common thread that was why people were sick. It wasn't the thing that people wanted to be, is they wanted to be one thing making everybody sick. And I tried that until I finally figured out that the common thread is the liver and the bile, which we're gonna try not to get too deep into that today. But the liver and the bile connects all these sicknesses, and that was the thread that I finally found. And then vitamin A toxicity. What was it? 6 years ago now, I came across Grant Genereux's work, and I read his ebook. And I was thinking about it at the time. I was doing a lot of hair analysis.
Just to back you up real quick. Yeah, no one listening here knows who Grant Genereux is. So
okay.
Can you explain to this? And we will get into the liver and bile, because honestly, it's never been defined on this podcast. No one's explained it. So
okay,
but yeah, who's Grant Genereux?
Well, so Grant Genereux is he's an engineer in Canada, and he had terrible jaundice and eczema, really painful eczema, but he was more concerned about how it looked because it was rough. And so he had jaundice and eczema and chronic kidney disease, and he was heading to dialysis. His doctor was basically like, you're pretty much going to be getting dialysis, or you can go home and slowly die. So he went and looked up the top, his basic logical progression as an engineer. He went and looked up the top 10 foods that triggered eczema, that made it worse, and he brought them all together, and he said, well, the one nutrient in common in all of these is vitamin A. So he decided to make a very low vitamin A diet. It was basically beef or bison, so red meat, white or brown rice, and black beans. And he would make those daily and make them into he calls it his prison diet. He would basically put them together into he'd add some hot water and make a little soup out of it. Anyway, he ate that. He's been eating very slight variations on that for 10 years now. He purposely made a very low vitamin A diet. His jaundice went away. His eczema went away. and his chronic kidney disease went away, and he was the first person his nephrologists have ever seen come back fully lab tested normal from chronic kidney disease. So, pretty big deal. I saw his work. I had some clients who I was giving vitamin A in my practice at the time based on what I was taught in hair analysis. So I was giving vitamin A, whether it was retinol palmitate or encouraging people to eat sweet potatoes and spinach or take liver pills. I actually had people doing liver pills for a time. And over time, I noticed that there were some people who were getting better, but they'd be like, Doc, I got a lot better. And then over time, I'm getting more tired. I don't know why. Or they started saying my hair's thinning a little bit, and I don't know why. And I was trying to do the things that I knew at the time. But one thing I think I do differently than a lot of practitioners is I took the blame. I was saying, I'm missing something. What am I missing? Because I believe my clients. If they tell me they're doing something, I believe them because there's no reason for them to lie to me. It doesn't help them. If they lie to me, it can only hurt them. So I assume they're right. It's like when trainers say their clients aren't eating the way that they say. That's fine if you want to tell them they're liars, and that's fine. You can do that. But I just kind of go, I'm going to believe you. It's only going to hurt you. So anyway, I decided I read about half of Grant's first book, sat back in my chair, and said, oh my goodness, this changes. I have to change everything I'm doing. I realized that it was right. I started seeing the patterns of my clients versus what Grant was saying. So I basically, at that point, I had already done it with vitamin D. Like, I think I started getting into vitamin D in like 2013. I started reading the research. I was like, this is really important. And back then, I got into hair analysis, and I found out what it did to hair tests, and I found out how the patterns on hair tests, vitamin D would tend to raise calcium, lower potassium, cause hypothyroid presentations.
So that shows up on the hair. Like when you have a mineral overload or whatever, that's the best way of doing it, not blood?
Yeah. Well, for calcium and magnesium levels, hair test is absolutely the best way to go. It shows it over time. It shows an average over time. So anyway, but on a hair test, vitamin D supplements will raise calcium and lower potassium. So I'd already come through that, and I started taking people off of vitamin D. I had been putting them on it. I was even doing like skin prick tests in my office. That's how into it I was back in like the mid 2010s. And people now are like, oh my gosh, vitamin D. I'm like, been there, done that, already stopped it. I am now like one of the most anti-vitamin D supplement people out there. I don't think it's good for people. And I just posted on Twitter today about if you have a lot of pain, just, do some other things. Get off the vitamin A supplements, get off the vitamin D supplements, do it for a month, get off the nightshades, which actually nightshades, one of the reasons they're not good for people is they contain a lot of vitamin A and active vitamin D. They contain calcitriol, the most powerful, calcium raising in your blood vitamin D there is, the active vitamin D. So when they don't measure.
I do want to say, like, probably most people listening to this podcast or watching it probably take a lot of vitamin D. Yeah. So just similar to like most people not knowing that research, or like if you have anything you want to say on the quick on like why you don't like vitamin D, that'd be great right now, because most people listening to this right now are like their minds are being blown by someone who doesn't like vitamin D.
Yeah, we're gonna have to rewind some of this, but I will say that Dr. Barry Tan did talk about calcification a lot in the previous podcast with Gigi Gold. Yes. So I mean, this isn't fully new to the podcast, but yeah, go on.
Well, metastatic calcification is the term that you can look up in the research. Spreading calcification. When people think of, calcification is vitamin D, especially when the idea is, what I try to do is give the body control of it, right? If we make vitamin D, we want to, and if we, well, let me back up one more step. People have been sold an assumption that I understand, and this is what I say, we do need sunlight. We do want ultraviolet light. We need that to be healthy and happy. Okay. The question is it through vitamin D, which is basically a specific oxidized form of cholesterol, so it's oxidized in your skin and then it goes back in your system, is that the mediator of the supposed benefits of vitamin D? And then there's the other assumption that if we know that in the research, people off the street who have lower vitamin D levels in their blood are less healthy than people who off the street, not supplementing, have higher vitamin D levels in their blood. The assumption is that if you give the lower people a vitamin D supplement, it's going to make them healthy like the higher people. And that doesn't pan out in the research. That's not how it works at all. So vitamin D is going to raise the calcium levels in your blood. That's what it does. Regardless of whether sun or not, supplements, it's going to raise the calcium levels in your blood. It's going to do this one of two ways. It's either going to increase the calcium absorption from your gut, or it's going to take it out of your bones. Vitamin D is going to raise the calcium in your blood. Hook or by crook, it's going to do it. So, I mean, I have research on, I think it was men, after 4 years of supplementing, it was either 3,000 or 6,000 units of vitamin D a day. They had lower bone density than the guys who didn't. Like, and we're using it to supposedly fix bone density and help these other things. But how does it, where does the calcium come from for it to raise calcium? Vitamin D overdose kills people by hypercalcemia. Where did that calcium come from? If it wasn't in the vitamin D pill or these other things, it's coming from out of you. It's pulling it out of the bones. The terms you can use in the research is go look up vitamin D bone resorption. It's the exact same thing that vitamin A toxicity does. Vitamin A, if people overdose on it and they can kill themselves, that's from hypercalcemia. Where does the calcium come from? Again, it's not from the vitamin A supplement or the polar bear liver or whatever. It's from the bones. So back on where to go from here? Anyway, so I started back in practice. I realized that vitamin D was not good. Vitamin D supplements was not good. So I started taking all my people off of them. I was like, sorry.
Yeah, we were seeing a lot of calcium. Were they having other effects? Like, something they could feel perhaps when taking too much vitamin D?
Well, the biggest thing is just stiffness. Like, if you're stiff in your joints, if you have pain in your joints, like the cracking, popping, all that stuff. Like, I used to crack and pop all the time. I don't anymore. Like, I mean, getting more magnesium, think of magnesium. Everybody loves magnesium, right? Magnesium is the anti-calcium. Like, you need magnesium to decalcify things. If you have, when people hear about, bone spurs, and I mean, how does medicine often find problems in our body? Like, with x-rays or CAT scans or these other things, what are they actually seeing? Like, what's an x-ray really good at visualizing?
Bones.
Calcium.
Ah, all right.
So when they find a disease, why are they doing mammograms? What are they finding in the breast? They're finding calcified areas. Like when they do these things to look at men's prostates, to look at all these things, or they just do an x-ray and they're like, hey, you got a problem right here. They're typically seeing, brighter white areas, which is where the calcium is. So most diseases involve some sort of calcification. When we think of aging, we think of slowing down. Calcification is like the stuff that is slowing things down. So we're doing these fat soluble, I call them fat storable vitamins, and your body should be in control of your vitamin D. That's what we want. Light. The way your body controls vitamin D, light, magnesium, zinc, protein, we need these things. And those things will actually raise your vitamin D levels, even though they're not vitamin D. So then you go, what are they doing? If they're not vitamin D, but they raise vitamin D levels, there's a lot more to this then. But so I took everybody off vitamin D, and people started feeling better, and I felt better. And I mean, I almost, well, let me give a quick story about vitamin D that helped me figure it out. I was taking, Thorne used to make 25,000 unit vitamin D pills. 25,000 units of pill.
Whew.
And I was being, I've always been kind of an overachiever, and I thought, well, I'll be real smart and efficient. So I'm going to take 2 a day, two of them 1 day a week. So I took 50,000 units of vitamin D 1 day a week. And I started noticing after like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of doing that, so I'm normally a 2 or 3 times a day bowel movement kind of guy. When I would take those on Sunday, I would not poop for 2 days, like solid. And I started looking for the pattern, and I'm like, wait, it's after I take vitamin D. And then I read this other book. I'm not going to mention who wrote it, but he said in the book, he goes, if you get too much vitamin D, it can constipate you. And I went, wait, whoa. And then when I put it together with hair analysis, they say that a high calcium and a low potassium ratio on the hair test, so too much calcium to too little potassium on the hair test, is associated with a hypothyroid presentation. Where does constipation fit in on thyroid stuff? Well, it obviously fits in with hypothyroid. So I just started putting these things together, and then I was like, I'm not supplementing this anymore. And then I saw with the things I was doing with people with the normal hair analysis, and I wasn't giving them vitamin D, that their calcification, their calcium on the test was coming back into range, and they stopped feeling so stiff and pain and cracking joints and popping joints. And I went, okay, we're fixing calcification. So that was one of my first like mea culpas of having to go, I was wrong. Sorry, that was my bad. And then I was supplementing vitamin A via the hair testing that I learned. I finally came across Grant Genereux's work, and I still had some health issues that I was dealing with. I mean, I was dealing with, let's see, when I was in medical school, I was dealing with, I was starting to get some BPH issues, some benign prostatic hypertrophy issues, some urinary issues. I had pretty bad insomnia. I had this middle back pain, kind of like over my kidney area. And I tend to have a lot of stiff lower backs, which I now associate with kidney issues, which is what Grant had, right? And I'm trying to remember if there was one other thing. Oh, I had psoriasis. Not real bad, but enough. And then when I did Grant's, when I started taking vitamin A out of my diet, I didn't ever do Grant's diet. That was just lots of people do it and they do great. It just didn't appeal to me. I was just like, let me figure out other low vitamin A foods that I can eat because I don't want to eat those every day. So I did it. And then I stopped supplementing vitamin A. I stopped supplementing, I was eating raw liver for a while. I'll do anything for health. And then all of a sudden over time, all those issues went away. The insomnia, the middle back pain that nobody could ever figure out, the urinary issues. My dad died of prostate cancer. So me getting urinary issues at age 25 when I'm in naturopathic medical school was concerning. I'm like, I don't want to head down this road. Obviously, I was like, there may be a genetic component to it. Now's the time to fix this. So anyway, I just fixed my stuff. I saw that it was working. And then I had to tell all my people, like, you're not taking vitamin A anymore. You're not trying to eat it anymore. Here's the general diet plan. And this is the way I think we should go. And then people started coming back and they're like, Dr. Smith, this is great. This is going away. This is going away. This is going away. And so here we are now, 6 years later. I'm almost at my 6-year anniversary of Grant did his 10-year anniversary. I'm almost at 6 years, and Grant and I are gonna do a show on it. We just talked about doing it yesterday, and we're just helping people left and right, and it's really quite amazing. And people have no idea how many sources there are of this. It's coming in cosmetics, it's coming in pills, it's coming in, eat a rainbow, eat liver and eggs and dairy, and it's everywhere. And they don't realize that the biggest problem today, this is the overarching thing. People will say, well, why wasn't vitamin A a problem when my grandma was eating tons of it? And I go, well, you hand down this toxicity. Like, you're made of what your grandma, your mom was made of what your grandma's made of, you're made of what your mom was made of. Like, you can hand down this toxicity over generations. It is fat storable. It is fat soluble. So we have this issue today, and the problem is with all the toxins we're exposed to. This is just a general thing. The more toxic a person becomes, the slower their detox system works, right? The more gunk you get in your car's engine, the less efficient it's going to be, and it's not going to run as well as it should. This is just the way it is. So you could be exposed to all sorts of toxins. It slows down your overall detox system, and then you build up other toxins that are not being able to be excreted either. So somebody could do it to themselves with Accutane or eating liver or taking tons of beta-carotene. They could do it all sorts of ways. They could do the vitamin A toxicity all sorts of ways, or they could have gotten toxic other ways that slow down the very same detox systems that help get rid of vitamin A. So
Okay, I have a lot of questions, but I think Ben had a question earlier that I want to get back to him because it might have been back on vitamin D. And then,
I kind of have a framing question. Just so to set the tone for everyone, Mike's been researching vitamin A for about a year now. I've been along for the ride of it. We travel a lot together. I hear about a lot of it, but like I consider myself in this podcast to be like the normal consumer who knows some, but maybe I might be able to offer some guiding to this conversation. Because Garrett, I think you have a lot of conversations with people who are familiar with the topic. So to set some tone, I have kind of like two questions, but it's kind of one at the same time. So something that Mike gets on me about is when I say things like this doesn't work or this is bad, because it's a very definitive statement. And so earlier you said vitamin D is bad, and I know you don't really mean that, but you said it kind of in passing. And so my question is kind of like, because there are tons of studies that show that vitamin D does beneficial things for the people. And
I'm going to supplementing, or do you mean levels?
That's kind of what I'm bringing up, right? People all of this, like, are there any levels of these things that are great levels? Do we want to encourage the body to produce it from sun? Like, what is the real point there? And this could be vitamin A or vitamin D. It just to kind of set the tone. A lot of people are going to listen to this and think, well, how is it possible that the statement could be true that vitamin D is not good, right? Like, that's it. So where are these things acceptable? And I want to ask, because I know you guys are going to go off on like the granular parts of this. I want to ask also, do you feel this way about all carotenoids, or are there some carotenoids like is it vitamin A in any form is terrible, or are there some forms where you're not as worried about it?
Okay, so let me hit on that one first, because that's the quickest one. I do not. Okay, first of all, there is no such thing as a zero vitamin A diet. It doesn't exist. This is very important to be clear on. This was stated in the research decades and decades ago. They were like, if we made a zero vitamin A diet, the researchers were saying this, if we made a zero vitamin A diet, it would be missing out in so many other things that people would get sick. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the things that I have to take people away from when they first come to me, is they're like, oh my gosh, you say it's bad, so I'm going to avoid all of it forever and never have any of it in. And I'm like, you don't get to do that. That would make your life like absolutely no fun anyway. I mean, like what are people going to eat? White sugar and MCT oil and collagen powder? Like, is that a suitable human diet? No, but it might be zero vitamin A. So this is where we get into, could people do that? Sure. But then they might say, well, this diet made me feel like crap. And I'm like, that's because you did a stupid version, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, the carotenoids, I don't think any of them are necessary. I mean, it's been, I have papers showing that they say there's no carotenoid that has ever been shown to be, needed, essential for the human body. And they won't even, the research on them is not even conclusive enough. The FDA says you can't even do any health claims about carotenoids. So I don't think they're necessary. We want, as the key thing with what we're talking about with vitamin A is we want to, if we're trying to get rid of something, anything, we want the amount we're putting in to be less than the amount we're excreting. It's just a math problem, right? We're just trying to increase the excretion, decrease the intake. So that's what a lot of people can do. It doesn't mean they have to go on zero. It just means you got to get lower than what is coming in. So we don't use any carotenoid supplements. I have some people who are amazingly sensitive to lutein. Like, they're like, lutein is the worst of all of it for me. Grant took some, I don't know why he did this, but during his vitamin A journey, his vitamin A detox journey, he actually took some lutein, and he said it really messed up his eyes. Like, he was seeing, like, things looked yellow out of his eyes. So it's that the carotenoids thing, we don't want it, but there is no such thing as a zero vitamin A diet. And one of the things I tried to do, as opposed to Grant, was Grant is just an engineer, and he just told people what he did. I'm more of like the clinician and the practitioner, and I'm trying to tell people, here's what you can do, and you don't have to just eat that diet. So do we cover that? I think that one was covered,
great.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, and I think we will slightly get into some of the biochemistry behind what's happening, because we're just to back it up. But yeah, keep going with the vitamin D and bad and good and stuff.
So vitamin D. So what do I think is? So yes, we have to distinguish between, if people are saying vitamin D is good and necessary, and we want more of it, and they'll say based on this study. Okay, well, you have to look at the study and see, is the study talking about levels of just like people walking around the street? Or are they talking about, they took this amount of vitamin D and it did this? Because those are two very different things. And I do agree that, okay, so I agree, we'll go over why this is in a second, but I agree that somebody walking around on the street who has a higher vitamin D level than somebody else, who they're not supplementing. There's no supplementing going on, and one person has a higher vitamin D level than another. Do I think that high vitamin D level could be a marker of better health? Sure. Yes, I agree with that. Okay. Vitamin D supplements, the huge reviews are saying they don't really work. Like, they're not really doing anything, or they're possibly making it worse. Okay. So we have that. So that's where we get into the levels versus the actual intervention, if you will. Then we have, what it is known in the body that vitamin A stores itself in the skin. It stores in the skin, right? That's why people will turn yellow or orange from taking in carrots, or one woman turned herself orange from too much red palm oil. A client of mine, And we know we store it in the skin. We know we store it in the subcutaneous fat. I've actually heard stories of plastic surgeons saying they can tell, in their opinion, when women come in who are healthy, that they have orange fat. They are storing so many carotenoids in their fat that their fat is orange instead of white. Well, funny coincidence, these are women going in for liposuction. So they're carrying more weight than they'd like. Is that a good correlation? I don't think, I wouldn't want that. Anyway, so we one of the ways that we can detox or oxidize vitamin A is sunlight. We generally regard sun exposure and UV light exposure as healthy. Well, what does that do? Well, it is oxidizing vitamin A in our skin. It's sending it through the steps of oxidation. When people get a sunburn, well, our people generally, as people get healthier and they do what we do, they stop burning. It's crazy. People will be like, I used to burn out in the sun in a half hour, and now I can go out like all day, and it's not happening. So anyway, the sun is oxidizing it. So we say that the sun raises vitamin D levels. We know that the sun destroys, or it doesn't destroy it, it oxidizes it, sends it through the detox pathway, and then it can move down to the liver and hopefully be excreted. The research also says that vitamin A levels and vitamin D levels are inversely related or antagonistic. More sun, less vitamin A, more vitamin D. Mm-hmm. So in my book, you're having less vitamin A in your system. Okay, that's good. And then you're getting a higher level of walking around endogenous vitamin D that your body is in control of more. When you pop a pill, it's just in there. That vitamin D is running around. Your body kind of loses control of it, and it's fat storable. So if you got more around than your body wants, I don't know where this whole nutrition industry forgot about the fat-soluble vitamins being storable and accumulating. They used to talk about it all the time. They're like, be careful with the fat-soluble vitamins. They can accumulate and they can cause problems. And now all of a sudden in the Instagram world that we're in, everybody's just like, take in more of these, take in more of these. And I'm like, when did things change? I mean, like, guy on Twitter the other day just said the liver doesn't accumulate toxins, and I show him a paper from like 1906 where they knew it back then, and now all of a sudden they're like, no, it doesn't store anything, and I go, it's exactly
what exactly is fatty liver then, sir?
What is fatty liver? Fatty liver. Why will fatty liver turn yellow? Like, what color is vitamin A? Why is fatty liver yellow?
I got to pause you right there. We haven't properly defined what is vitamin A. So vitamin D, as we supplement it, that's cholecalciferol. And then, there's a ton of pathways that we could post in the show notes. A lot of this can be in the show notes. We haven't properly defined vitamin A because I know that per the FDA, when Ben and I are consulting on a formula, for instance, multiple things can be labeled as quote unquote vitamin A. What is vitamin A in the body? How do we get there? How do we get out of there?
Okay. Well,
this is the biochem kind of part. Like, we don't have to go too scientific, but we need a few chemical names here.
Well, generally we get into carotenoids are what I would call plant vitamin A. Well, first of all, let's back up. There is no vitamin A anywhere, animal, retinol, retinoic acid, without carotenoids first.
It all starts there.
It all starts at carotenoids, which I believe are, if I remember, I believe they're terpenoid. Carotenoids are a terpenoid. And then
so so like beta-carotene, alpha-carotene, beta-cryptoxanthin, I think, like those, and those are, I think, and so I don't know about all the carotenoids, but these are like the pro vitamin A ones that can turn into.
There's not as many of them, but they're there, I believe, in higher amounts generally.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. So there's the non-pro vitamin A carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, where they do not break down into retinol or retinaldehyde, which we'll talk about in a second.
Right.
So they don't break down into retinaldehyde. And they don't count them on labels as vitamin A activity or retinol activity or anything like that. Retinol equivalent activity kind of stuff. So, however, you can go into the research and find that like what they call the retinoic acid receptor, or there's that one, or the RXR. Mm-hmm. They'll show that lutein activates it. So lutein is doing, I don't like that they call these receptors, retinoids or retinoic receptors, because there's one article I wrote where I could show that they can stimulate this receptor to activate with nothing there. So people will be like, but you need the retinoic acid. And I'm like, no, they actually can show that this receptor is activated with nothing there at all. And then they also had 7,500 different chemical retinoic acid receptor agonists, 7,500. So you start going, wait, that's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Promiscuous receptor.
So you're saying that, okay, so vitamin A.
Yes.
Basically is retinol. Like,
okay. Yeah. So I get off track. Sorry.
I know. But at the same time, I think what you're trying to get to, I'm going to do a little translation here, and maybe I won't cheat too much. A lot of people say vitamin A is essential vitamin, but you're saying that maybe retinol or this family that we should go through is not essential because other things can activate these receptors. Is that perhaps fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. So take us through the pathway then. If I'm starting with, it all starts from the plants. So pretend I'm a cow or pretend I'm a human. I'm eating some spinach leaves or whatever it is, like too many carrots. What's going on here?
A cow or us. Let's say I'm just going to stick with beta-carotene because that's what everybody knows. That's the big one, especially in the supplement industry, right? And you know all about the supplement studies coming out on beta-carotene and showing it's a disaster. So beta-carotene goes through an enzyme that then chops it into 2 retinaldehydes. Not retinol directly. It turns it into 2 retinaldehydes. And anybody who knows anything about chemistry and human health knows that aldehydes are not good for us.
Like the hangover aldehyde.
Yeah, acetaldehyde is the hangover aldehyde from alcohol. Formaldehyde, like methanol, you drink the methanol, but what kills you? It's the formaldehyde it turns into that kills
wood,
you.
Is that wood alcohol?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So we have all these things that are alcohols that break down into aldehydes. Well, beta carotene is turned in the body into retinaldehyde. Most people have never even heard of retinaldehyde. And then it can actually go backwards. If you want to think of there's directions, it could go backwards into retinol via an enzyme called ALDH, or it can go forwards into retinoic acid. So that's basically the gist of it. We store retinol in the body fat and in the liver fat as retinyl esters. We take the retinol, we bind it to a free fatty acid ester, stick them together, shove it into the fat. So that's how we store it. Why do we do that? The idea is to get it out of the blood, because if you have too much in the blood, free retinol is known to be extremely toxic in the blood. That's why we make retinol binding protein to protect ourselves, and that's why we store it in the liver, because we can't get rid of it fast enough. So retinaldehyde is kind of the intermediate product, and then there's retinoic acid. So then we go into retinoic acid, and then you can excrete retinoic acid various ways, because, well, I found different stuff in the research. Some places say it's fat soluble, some places say it's water soluble. This is vitamin A science is kind of sketchy out there. There's a lot of stuff they don't know, because they hardly ever look at they don't ever measure retinoic acid in the blood. They don't look at it generally. So anyway, retinoic acid is what a lot of us know as Accutane is one, Retin-A, isotretinoin, tretinoin. So let me just go into that. So retinoic acid, when it's made in your liver, it turns into one of 3 retinoic acids. 13-cis-retinoic acid. This is Accutane. Same compound, isotretinoin. It can also turn into all trans-retinoic acid. So when you look in the research and they just say the word retinoic acid, this is generally what they're talking about. This is the same stuff as Retin-A. This is tretinoin. Okay. The other one that it can turn into is alitretinoin, which is 9-cis-retinoic acid. This is typically people only hear about this. It's used as chemotherapy. Okay. And they combine it often, when they use retinoic acids for chemotherapy, they'll use any of those 3. They'll use Accutane as chemotherapy. They'll use Retin-A as chemotherapy. They'll use alitretinoin as chemotherapy. The most common thing they combine it with is arsenic trioxide. So they combine arsenic and vitamin A. I joke that birds of a feather flock together, right? So if you put more toxins together, you get better chemo. So anyway, those toxins, like if you eat vitamin A, first of all, if you've ever heard of side effects of Accutane has just a horrible, horrible list of side effects. The 13-cis-retinoic acid that you would put into your body as Accutane is the exact same. Like, scientists wouldn't be able to tell tell the difference between the compounds between the stuff from a pill and the stuff your body makes.
Same chemical.
What's that?
Same chemical. So
same chemical.
Eating a carrot or whatever, I don't know what percent, but some percent, you're going to make your own Accutane.
I've shown the study where as people ate a certain amount of vegetables, they saw the all trans retinoic acid in their urine go up. Oh, like it's turning into these retinoic acids.
We'll
So
find
how
out
does
the
that
show
compare
notes.
to the amounts of someone actually using the drug, though?
No, because well, your body has more control over it. The reason why Accutane and Retin-A are so damaging, and I'll go over the Retin-A study here real quick. The reason why they're so damaging is, again, like vitamin D, your body has no control over the storage of it and the breakdown of it, where your body can kind of decide how fast it's going to break it down. So we always want to try to give the body control over this stuff. What were
You're
we saying?
taking metabolites, so then your body doesn't get the chance to metabolize it at its own discretion.
Yes. And one of the things I found in the research is that retinoic acid actually. So retinoic acid, we got to define how toxic this is. Chemical peel, retinoic acid, all trans retinoic acid, is used in the cosmetics industry, aesthetics industry, as what's called a yellow peel or a yellow chemical peel. What do chemical peels do, especially retinoic acid? It dissolves the upper layers of skin, basically dissolves those cells, and then your body starts reproducing cells faster underneath it. So people they get like the baby butt look, right? Their skin looks nicer. Okay, cool. That's nice. In the research, they refer to that process. One paper referred to it as they use the yellow chemical peel to induce a controlled wound in the skin. They're inducing a controlled wound in the skin. So that this retinoic acid is dissolving cells. So as you eat more of it, it's coming out in your bile, and then your bile is covering your intestines, and we have tons of intestinal problems these days. We have tons of people talking about leaky gut as the source of their health problems, and then you can actually eat holes through your intestines and your bile ducts in your liver, and then it leaks into your system, and then you can have retinoic acid running through your system, causing all these problems. So that's the chemical peel part of it. Now, to give people an example of how toxic this stuff. So when you take retinoic acid, I have a paper showing that this is how the body controls it. This is why taking the drug is, in theory, worse than the food. And it's not because they're different compounds, but the research was showing that retinoic acid, as the levels go up, retinoic acid directly inhibits the enzyme that makes it. So it's got like a negative feedback. So if you take Accutane or all trans retinoic acid or any of that stuff, it's going in and it's slowing down your actual detox. This is what I was talking about. The more toxic you get, the more you slow down detox. And this seems to sometimes be sort of like locked in. If people don't do something like we do, they're stuck there. And that's where they're like, I've had dry eyes ever since I took Accutane 30 years ago. And it's like, it doesn't go away until you actually fix it. But the other thing, there was a big study on veterans where they gave them all Retin-A to rub on their face because they were saying they were going to try to prevent skin cancer. Well, they shut down that study after, I think, about 3 months because too many of the veterans in the Retin-A group were dying early. And they had already separated out the veterans that they thought were going to die early. They wouldn't let the guys they thought were going to die early be in the study. So they already took those guys out, and then they still had too many of them dying early. So, and that's just absorbing it through the skin. There is actually research out there and guidelines on vitamin A toxicity through the skin, especially in Europe. Like they've banned vitamin A in certain skin products and other stuff. So we are absorbing it through all these things. It doesn't just stay where we put it. And then, like I said, it slows down the detox, which then backs up the whole detox system, and then you're storing more. And then you just build it. Like I said, you slow down the detox and you start building these things up faster. So that's kind of, I think, an overview of the vitamin A system. Yeah, so what was the next thing?
Okay, yeah, Ben, do you have any specific questions?
Or did I hit your other questions, Ben?
I still kind of have questions about the perspective levels. You didn't kind of answer. I asked, from consuming these things versus using a drug, are there studies? Because we're talking a lot about chemistry here, but we're not talking about a lot of data that's in the application of it. Are there studies that compare the urine levels of this from someone who's eaten too much of it versus someone? Because I understand you're providing an exogenous source of this, and your body cannot detox it quickly enough.
Yes.
Are there studies that show levels in comparisons between a diet source versus a drug?
Are we talking about the? Okay, here's what I know. I've seen beta-carotene. So I've dug deep into the beta-carotene thing, and I have a whole story about that. When I founded PricePlow, writing the articles, we'll go through the archive.org and everything, and there's concerns there. With beta-carotene, there are some tracing studies with it being traced, and there are some studies where ingesting the beta-carotene, they do count how much of the the 13-cis retinoic acid, the Accutane, how much of that is made. I don't know what the numbers are. but it's not nearly as much as if you took Accutane itself,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you would the form you took obviously would raise that form the most. Like, because retinoic acid, the thing about retinoic acid is it doesn't go backwards. ALDH, the enzyme that turns aldehydes into acids, like so retinaldehyde into retinoic acid, that enzyme is not reversible. So if you take retinoic acid, it has no escape. Like there's no biochemical backing up. And then all your body can do is say, let's slow down ALDH. So we don't make more, because we're in trouble right now.
Okay. I never connected that piece. Okay, so what do we do? Let's say we could argue about vitamin A foods for a little bit, but let's just say that we have someone who's full-blown Accutane poisoned, or whatever the word is. They've gone overload.
Hypervitaminosis A.
Okay, that's vitamin A toxicity, right? Clinical,
Yeah.
like. Okay, so what do you do at that point if things are slowed down to the point where it doesn't want any more? What's the plan? What's the program?
Well, I wanted to get into like I was gonna hit on Ben's question some more. I don't know, Ben.
Okay.
Let me just go over how vitamin A toxicity is assessed today and how it's, because I mean we can look at levels. Different people are sensitive to different types of vitamin A. There is like I said, the lutein people. They will figure out lutein and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't have anything with lutein in it because that's a really bad thing for me. Some people, retinol from like animal foods, that is their kryptonite. So in terms of these different things, I mean, I do have a thread, I believe, where I go over like that we do actually turn things into retinoic acid, but they're not comparing different groups of like food based versus pharmaceutical based or supplement based. The thing about assessing vitamin A toxicity, that the main problem of the industry of figuring this out is that the only measurement that people really do is serum retinol, blood vitamin A, or they'll sometimes do retinol binding protein 4, which is what our body makes to bind to retinol, and they've said it's a surrogate for vitamin A testing. However, if you don't have enough zinc or if you don't eat enough protein, you won't make enough of it, so you'll have more free retinol and that you don't see, and then your retinol binding protein looks lower than it should be, when it should be higher if you were eating a better diet. And then the only way to truly assess vitamin A toxicity in the body is a liver biopsy. Or you're doing like radioactive tracers, which most people don't want to do. And most people don't want to do a liver biopsy either. But I did a whole... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, so just to ask a question for clarification for anyone listening. The real issue is that you can't really measure how much toxicity you have, because you can only measure how much is floating around in the serum unless you're getting a biopsy of the liver,
Yes.
right? Okay, just to clear that up, because I don't know if anyone puts that together.
And this is where there's such a big problem, is if you don't get enough, like I was saying, of the protein or the zinc or whatever, the vitamin A will stay in your liver and it won't come out into the serum. Mm-hmm. I have a really great case study where the guy went to his doctors. He's got liver problems, and the doctors decided, even after they saw his blood test of serum retinol was 17, which is technically deficient. The doctors they did a liver biopsy, and they found that his liver vitamin A was like off the charts, crazy high. So low blood, high liver. Mm-hmm. And they decided he had vitamin A toxicity, and they said, stop all your supplements. They probably put him on a low vitamin A diet. They don't actually mention that in the case study. They don't mention changing his diet, but I'm assuming they were like, stop eating sweet potatoes and stop eating spinach and do that stuff. So by the end of, I think it was either 8 or 12 weeks, so his original serum retinol was 17 deficient, if you believe in deficiency, which I don't. But anyway, after the 8 or 12 weeks, his serum retinol was 62. It finally started coming out of his liver. They actually mentioned in there that they did make him eat more protein. And so and they saw his liver vitamin A go way down fairly quickly. So we see that it can be, the serum retinol may be completely misrepresenting what is actually going on in the liver. It may be the opposite. And all we know is if somebody has low vitamin A and they come to me and they're really sick, I know their liver is probably really messed up and they may be totally full of it. And we actually expect it to come up. Their serum retinol to come up as it's finally released from the liver. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when somebody is high on serum retinol, then guaranteed they're vitamin A toxic. That's the only way that would be high, is because it's high. But if it's low, they can still be high. So serum retinol is just not a good way, and that's the only way they assess. I mean, a serum beta-carotene test as is in the research, as you've probably seen, Mike, beta-carotene can come down extremely quick in the blood once people are not eating it or supplementing it. That comes down quick. But where's it going? It's being split up into retinaldehyde and retinol and being stored or floating around as retinol, because you still got to get rid of it. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, great. Ben, do you have anything else?
That's great.
Okay, so we've mentioned the liver a lot. And honestly, the liver, has, like I said, hasn't been defined on this podcast. What is the liver? What does it do? Obviously, it's a critical part of this, but quite honestly, it seems like all we ever talk about in the world is how it filters alcohol or whatever the words are, you know? So like, can you give us, like, help us a little bit? What's the liver doing here? And then you mentioned bile, and I don't think anyone knows anything about bile listening to this. So
I didn't really used to know much about it either. It's kind of the biggest overlooked part of all of medicine. So obviously the liver, the way most people think of the liver is they think of it as a sort of detox organ. Okay, I kind of simplify the liver. I mean, yes, okay, so I'm not going to get into the liver makes tons of proteins for the body. Okay, great. That's simple. That's not what we're talking about here. We're leaving that topic out. The liver is a filter. By definition, people will say, I just saw someone on Twitter the other day said it's not a filter. I was like, a filter takes something out of something else. Like if you have a fluid and you run it through something and it takes something out of that fluid, that's a filter. Like the liver is the biggest filter by definition. I mean, the kidneys do it too, but the liver filters things. It takes stuff out of the blood. So it can then do its other jobs. It's like a sewage processing plant. It takes compounds and it turns them into other compounds. People tend to assume that it's making those compounds into less toxic compounds. But a lot of people in the detox industry ignore the very real, it's called biotransformation or intoxification, which is where as the liver runs these things through the detox pathway, it can actually become a more toxic substance, which is a problem. And people go, well, why are we designed that way? And I go, I don't know. I didn't design the system. It's not my system. I'm just trying to fix it. So there's the sewage processing plant. The thing to remember about a sewage processing plant is that the sewage processing plant, if it turns these things into better or worse things, it still has to get rid of it somehow. It hasn't left. Like, you know, it's like a nuclear power plant runs and then there's nuclear waste. You got to do something with the nuclear waste at the end. It can't just sit there because it'll overwhelm the system. Then we have storage. The liver absolutely stores stuff. The idea that the liver doesn't, I mean, the word that is used in the literature is accumulate. So if somebody goes and types store, they won't find it. But if you search on PubMed and you type in accumulate, you'll find it, absolutely. So those are the three big things that I concern myself with in the liver: the filtering, the sewage processing plant, and then the storage. So how does the liver get rid of that toxic waste, that sewage processing plant ending product? It puts it into the bile. The bile is how, so when people talk about detox, they often just talk about the process and they just assume that it just magically leaves the body. Well, a toxin is in the system. If it's in the system, it hasn't been, in my opinion, it hasn't been detoxed yet. I want it to be out of the system. You've peed it out, you've pooped it out, you've sweated it out, it has left the system. One of the problems with the skin as a detox organ is that when you sweat it out or when it comes out, it's still sitting on your skin. So then it can cause damage while it's on your skin. This is why, like some skin conditions, if you wash your face enough, you can have less of a skin condition. All you're doing is you're finally getting that toxic stuff off quick enough. Anyway, so by definition, the bile is the most toxic fluid in your body. It's how your liver gets rid of its waste. So I actually jokingly, I will call the bile the liver's poop. So your liver poops the bile into the intestines, and then your goal is to poop out the bile. And what we are trying to do when we're fixing people is to poop out the bile as best we can. Why is that? Because your gut absorbs and reabsorbs almost everything it touches. People want to believe that your skin will only absorb good things. They want to believe that your intestines will only absorb good things. It's like unicorns and rainbows. It's not. It absorbs everything. So if you put bad stuff down there, it's reabsorbing it. It's said that we reabsorb 95% of the bile that goes in there, and it goes right back to the liver. So you have this poop, your liver's poop is going in your intestines, and then you're reabsorbing up to 95% of it right back to the liver just to make the liver do the job again. This is why that loop, this is why in our work, the most important thing we do is to reduce the toxins coming in. That just makes the whole system less toxic because you are getting rid of some of it. And then we get into toxic bile theory, which is where that bile is so toxic with all the things that it's got in it, the chemical peel in it, the toxic metals, the forever chemicals, all these things that you're exposed to, that your body's trying to get rid of, that bile can eat holes in the bile ducts, in the liver cells itself, in the intestine. It can eat holes in your stomach. Those are called ulcers. And then it leaks into your bloodstream. And then you have chronic conditions that could be anywhere in your body with the blood flows, which is everywhere. So you could be causing your health problems are related to this toxicity leaking into your blood. That is the whole basis of what we're doing. Vitamin A in the research has been shown to cause cholestasis. So that's one of the reasons why we don't want to do it.
Cholestasis?
Cholestasis or toxic leaky bile. The bile leaking into the bloodstream, that's cholestasis by definition.
Stasis, like
stasis
stopping?
As in stagnation.
Like stagnation.
Yeah. And so
what has stagnated? The bile or the liver completely
the term is
cholestasis
is bile. Bile is cola and stasis is stagnation. But what we're thinking of is kind of like the bile is the simplest way of explaining is the bile is going places it's not supposed to be. It's backing up. Like if you were thinking of a river, of a stagnant river, right? The river is kind of backing up and it's spreading and it's going places where it shouldn't. It's not just still, is what I'm trying to emphasize. So that's the whole basis of what we do. And so a lot of my research is into cholestasis and the liver and how do we fix these problems. And so what are the things that contribute to it? What can we do in terms of, let's say, not putting toxins in? What can we do in terms of facilitating the removal of these toxins that are stored already? And then what can we do in terms of nutrients, particularly minerals, to help the body to be able to protect itself from these toxins and to help the body to run the detox system that it needs to so it can remove these toxins. And that's the basis of what we do. So there, calcifying things, when we're talking about vitamin A and vitamin D, calcifying things, like when you think of your home water plumbing system getting calcified, that's how things break, right? Like, I mean, you get calcium deposits and things back up and they too much pressure and they break and things crack. And, that's what we're trying to not do in the human body. So Go ahead.
Awesome. No. Okay. So yeah, putting it together, pretty much the theory is people have been either you start off at a bad spot or because we're fed baby formula with a bunch of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
A lot of colorful foods, so on and so forth, fortified milk and cereal. A lot of people on our channel have listened and joked about the proteins that we loved growing up on 4 bowls of milk and cereal and everything. So we've been fortified with a lot of this stuff. At some point, it's a fat soluble, so we can't pee it out really, or at least not fast enough. Eventually we get overloaded. Eventually that stops the liver. Eventually the liver regurgitates it upwards, and then we're throwing up bile somehow. Or
you're throwing bile back into places it's not supposed to be. Yes.
Okay, but why can't we just poop it out? Oh, because it's damaging the liver.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we're heading into toxic bile theory right now, yeah, we'll just head into that. What's going on is a lot of talk. It's like, I know you guys were saying like a lot of people aren't familiar with what I'm doing, and I'm trying to like back it up. So we talked about this toxic bile. It is damaging everything it touches. A lot of toxins actually over time slow down bile production. So if you slow down bile production, by definition, you're not going to get rid of as many toxins as you could.
Like this is constipation then, right? If you're not...
That can be, yeah. Yes, you need... Well, so bile is so for people who have pooping issues, it's in the literature that normal... I'm just going to throw out some numbers here that are close to what was in the study. Normal people had about 500 units of bile in their poop. Constipated people had about 200 units of bile in their poop. And diarrhea folks had about 1,200 units of bile in their poop. And so bile is actually... You need bile to prevent small intestinal bowel overgrowth, SIBO. It does help, kind of not sterilize, but it helps keep your gut biome. It actually modulates your gut biome. I have a paper where they're specifically saying bile modulates your gut microbiome. bile is either making your gut biome worse or better. And that is the biggest thing that you're coating your intestines with multiple times a day, right? You may be eating different things at times a day, but your bile is still coming down and it's doing what it does. And you're either feeding the bad guys or you're not feeding the bad guys. So where was I going with that? So there's the bile coming out. When we get toxic, we tend to make less bile. By definition, if you're making less bile, you're going to detox slower. You're going to build up more toxins of all sorts. The more you tend to get slower, right? The slower your plumbing in your system gets, the more backing up, the more back pressure you have, and the more things you tend to blow out, whether it's in the liver or other places. So the bile that makes it down into your guts is now becoming even more concentrated and more toxic because you're making less of it. So then you have more concentrated, more toxic bile coating the bile ducts, coating the intestines, coating the stomach, and it's eating holes through it, so you're leaking more.
So this is just an epic negative feedback loop.
Yeah, it's just
all right. Yeah. All right, so you're the doctor. How do we get into positive feedback loops? Can we get to any of these solutions yet?
Well, the biggest thing, it's kind of what I said already. The biggest thing we can do is to stop putting the toxins in. I always tell people, but if you want to start detoxing, I kind of sometimes think it's funny that we talk about detoxing so much when it's really we need to stop intoxing. Right. That is the key thing, because a toxin you never put in doesn't have to be detoxed. It doesn't add to the load, so it doesn't exist. It's like, don't be there. I love that little saying.
Can you define detox then? I mean, because when people in our space here, this is let's say sports nutrition space, we hear the word detox, like, oh, these knuckleheads who are selling these fad supplements that maybe make you crap a little bit or something. But what do you mean by detox? Are we talking about getting the liver moving or a chemical reaction or?
Well, yeah, it's kind of that. The biggest thing, like I say, is the most dangerous toxin to people would be something that people are taking in purposely because they think it's good for them. That would be the most dangerous toxin, because people are trying to get more of them because they've been fooled into thinking it's good for them. This is like the juicing fad, where people are just slugging down giant glasses of vitamin A filled juice, stuff like that. So that would be the most dangerous thing. So knowing what the toxins are first, so we could then choose to avoid them or not, is the most key thing. Because, like I said, a toxin you never put in doesn't have to be detoxed. Then we get into how do we get these things out of the liver, out of the liver and then out of the body. That's the biggest thing. So the two things that I've been working on with people a lot is, one of the things that it adsorbs, is the term it adsorbs bile, is soluble fiber. Soluble fiber grabs onto bile and helps you poop out more. The studies are very clear that you poop out more bile when you take in soluble fiber. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody should just go out and eat tons and tons of soluble fiber. You got to watch your amounts. You got to watch your sources. Like some people, beans are a very good source of soluble fiber. Not everybody gets along with beans. That's okay. Don't eat them then. I do, what is my soluble fiber sources? I do sun fiber. Really love sun fiber. I just found out, you guys hear about the worldwide shortage of sun fiber? I just came across this in the company I was talking to. I was like, wow, no. It's a great product. I love it. And
it's a soluble one?
It's a soluble. It's okay. Super soluble.
Yeah, I mean, I know it makes it clear. It's on pretty much tasteless. It's a pretty cool ingredient we've tinkered with for sure.
Yeah, they just told me, they're like, we won't have it till November. I'm like, oh. Anyway, so there's psyllium husk, there's apple pectin, there's sun fiber, there's beta-glucan, foods is beans, any type of normal beans, oats, or barley. Those are the highest beta-glucan ones. And then we've got apples. And those foods, the research out there shows that apples are by far the healthiest fruit in the research. Okay. What color is the flesh of apples? It's whitish typically. Well, that's low in vitamin A. That's a good color. And then it's also got a lot of pectin, a lot of soluble fiber. So the combination of being low in vitamin A and high in pectin with soluble fiber is why it's the healthiest fruit out there. So we can then kind of reverse engineer and see why these things are regarded as being healthy. Why is sun healthy for us? It oxidizes vitamin A. Why are apples healthy? They don't have a lot of vitamin A, and they have pectin, which helps us excrete more bile and vitamin A. So those are the things that we can. And then there's also charcoal, activated charcoal. I prefer
that's one we don't
hardwood.
talk about much in our sphere at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I talk to Europeans, I mean, we've had clients in 29 countries so far. When I talk to Europeans, they're just like, oh yeah, we used to use charcoal for everything stomach related when we were kids. And you talk to Americans and they're like, what do you mean charcoal? Why would I eat charcoal? Like, I don't understand. And it's like, charcoal is the greatest detox agent just about out there. Now, people need to know it does really soak up bile. It really, really soaks up bile. And when I just talked about the pooping mechanism, how bile relates to pooping, what we figured out from just experience is in like, about 95% of people, charcoal doesn't trigger a bile dump. It doesn't trigger more bile dumping. Okay. Charcoal's very good at soaking up bile. So if you have something that doesn't trigger more bile dumping and it's very good at soaking up bile, then that bile's not available to trigger your pooping, and then you can get constipated. And that's the one biggest thing that we know about charcoal is if a person takes too much for them, they tend to get constipated. So now we have mechanisms for how these things work. Some people are very lucky. They take a little bit of charcoal and they actually poop better. And I go, you're like the 5%. That's nice. Don't tell everybody else that it works that way, because you don't need to tell these women that just take more charcoal, you'll poop better. I'm like, no. The only danger of charcoal is taking too much and becoming too blocked up. So as long as you don't do that, charcoal really has no negatives to it other than constipation in some people. So, but yeah, those are the two things that we use to bind up the bile so that we poop them out maximally. Now, we do detox bile through the skin. It tends to go to the kidneys after the liver. Toxic bile that would leak into the bloodstream, the next thing it hits is the kidneys. The kidneys really don't like it. That's why Grant was in kidney failure, and that's why I was having lower back pain, the stiffness. I believe that's kidney-referred pain. So the kidneys don't really like it, but they can deal with it. And then the skin is next. I mean, we can talk about earwax, and we can talk about, sebaceous gland oils, and we can talk about all that stuff, but really those are the three big ones. If you got skin problems, you're dumping too many toxins out through your skin. Simple as that. If you got kidney problems, you're sending too much toxic bile and vitamin A to your kidneys.
I think you're getting to my next question then.
Okay.
Before we talk about more like solutions or whatever, it seems like since it's hard, okay, we can't measure vitamin A toxicity through a simple, effective, or whatever cheap blood test, unfortunately. I'm not getting a liver biopsy. Right. So what are some of the general ways? We got a lot of like 30-ish year old males listening to this podcast within the industry. What are some of the general like ways of maybe even thinking that you might be subclinically or clinically vitamin A toxic? What are some of the not the side effects, but some of the manifestations, symptoms?
Well, the biggest symptoms
besides the skin thing that you mentioned,
the biggest symptoms that we get, the problem with it is people go, well, what are the symptoms of vitamin A toxicity? And I go,
right.
Once you understand toxic bile theory, I'm like, it could be anything in your entire body. That's the hard part. I might start with skin issues and gut issues and what was the other one? Oh, eye issues.
Dry eyes.
If you got skin issues or eye issues or gut issues, those are the big ones. Those are like the most common ones. And then there's always the anxiety and depression and all the emotional and mental stuff. But in terms of labs, okay, so I'm just going to touch on this. There's two major phenotypes or expressions of people that I tend to come across. There's the people who tend to gain weight, the overtypes I call them. And then there's the people who, as they get less well, they get underweight. The research on longevity is actually that everybody talks about overweight being bad for your lifespan. Okay, chronically underweight is actually worse. They actually die sooner than the overweight people, but there's not very many of them, so nobody talks about it. So there's kind of two patterns that you can see on labs. Like I'm going to talk about some labs here real quick. There's two patterns that we tend to see on labs. People either go high, like overs, or they tend to go low, like unders, because their liver is not running well at all. It's going very slow. They can't even keep mass on their body. Things are running really not well. But over, so I'm going to talk about over stuff right now because that's the most common. That's like 95% of the people I see. The undertypes are a little bit deeper, my joke saying, but it's true, is a little bit deeper in the liver doo-doo. They're sicker. It is what it is, at least they know. So overtypes, so things that we could look for on blood tests that might give away that vitamin A toxicity is going on or that liver problems is going on. LDL. You've posted about this too. LDL actually has retinol in it. LDL has vitamin A in it, and it's the bad cholesterol. Wow, what a coincidence, right? So then we have triglycerides. I have a whole article written, high triglycerides. I have a whole article written where they give vitamin A to animals or humans, and they watch their triglycerides go up, and they take it away, and their triglycerides come down. Okay, we got that. Then there's the good old liver enzymes, the ALT, AST, GGT, ALK-Phos, alkaline phosphatase. What was the other one I'm thinking of? LDH, lactate dehydrogenase. If your liver's not happy, then there's a problem. But one of the things we also have to know about conventional medicine and their labs is they have a term called silent liver disease, which means that there's liver disease and they can't find it. They know that the person is expressing liver problems and they can't find it on their labs. So, I mean, people will tell me, they're like, I know I had liver problems, but my liver enzymes are fine. And I'm like, yeah, this is like your serum retinol may be in the normal range and you got really bad vitamin A toxicity. That's the problem, is your liver will, in my opinion, it tries to hide things as well as it can. Like your liver's trying to be like, no, everything's cool. Just I'm fine, and it's struggling. But it's just like, I'm going to do my job until we croak. So there's that. If a person was born jaundiced, if you were born jaundiced, or if you've ever had jaundice, you have a lot of liver problems going on. Your skin actually turned yellow. That's a big sign.
So yeah, you have a big YouTube
Billy
channel
Ridler.
called Nutrition Detective and everything. When I first heard you say that on one of your live streams, my heart sunk because our daughter was, had the as they call it, the suntan, which is like 70% of babies anymore.
Yeah, it's like 70% of babies.
That was one of the foundational moments of my life, just so you know. So we can get into my story, but like, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, I have women who have had like 6 kids, and every one of them was jaundiced until the one after they worked with me. Like it's really crazy. So all the jaundice means is that your liver's been behind since you started. Can it be fixed? Absolutely, in my opinion. What else? If you've ever had a skin color change from eating a bunch of vitamin A foods, you're vitamin A toxic.
Carrot Man.
Carrot Man, yes. And there was the other paper where the kids in what was it, Mozambique or whatever, where they would turn, they actually, in mango season, they would turn orange. Now, these were African kids, right? So it's probably their palms and the soles of their feet, and maybe they're seeing it in their eyes, in the whites of their eyes. But yeah, they were saying, they actually said that once their skin's turned orange, they did kind of a very fancy vitamin A assessment on them, but they said that's like the level of vitamin A toxicity. They said vitamin A toxicity happens in the liver when the skin turned orange. So if you've ever turned orange, what's going on is your liver's stored so much vitamin A that then your body says, we're going to stop processing the carotenoids, the beta-carotene, and we're just going to put it in the skin. We've been forced to store it in a different place. So what else is there?
So can I ask a question based on all that? So people who've ever had their skin changed, they most likely have a liver problem, but you kind of note that there's an idea that there's this silent liver issue that we can't really identify it, but it exists, and likely a lot of people have this thing that you're talking about. Do you find that there are people that are more susceptible to effects of vitamin A toxicity than others? Like, for instance, I've subscribed to, for a number of years, the general idea that sweet potatoes and egg yolks were healthy. And I have definitely over-indexed on them, yet I don't really have a lot of the issues that you guys are talking about. Does there seem to be people who don't have effects from this issue?
Men detox faster than women. And men also don't tend to make body fat as quickly as women. So women are better at storing toxicity, and women actually make less bile. That's why they detox slower. This is all in the research. So we know that generally women are going to have a tougher time with this. Like especially if you come from very hardy, resilient stock, then your system is probably better than others to begin with.
Yeah.
I've realized over the years how many ways I poison myself with vitamin A. And I look at it and I go, this is really amazing. Like, I actually believe I have a really good constitution, or I wouldn't have made it. So the enzyme in the body that I mentioned, ALDH. Okay, genetically, 50% of Asians have a genetically slow ALDH. So this means that retinaldehyde, they're going to back up from that. They're not going to move along. That's like the Asian flush. Okay, or the Asian glow, if you've heard of that, where Asians have like a drink or two, they turn bright red and they're giddy and laughing, and it's like, it's a thing. And then they're building up acetaldehyde. That's what it is. They're building up acetaldehyde. They can't get rid of it, and then they get those extra symptoms. And that's why they don't drink much, is because they know it's going to be a real bad day after that. So slow ALDH, genetically, it's not just Asians. It's not just Asians, but Asians have the highest percentage of it. And if you look at the traditional Asian diet, there's almost no vitamin A in it. There's not, there's not. So maybe
white rice,
a way that they figured out. They were like, look, these foods, we don't do so hot on these high vitamin A foods, so we're not going to eat them.
Is it possible it's the opposite, that they traditionally haven't eaten them and that's why they have those issues more?
I don't know. All I do is I've seen, I've seen Asians have a tougher time recovering from it, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Like, traditionally, they have not consumed these, so they haven't built the same constitution that we may have. Maybe.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they somehow just figured it out and they were like, look, these foods don't work so well for us, so we're not going to eat them. So yeah, it could be both. Then, if anybody's ever taken if anybody's ever taken Accutane or Retin-A or any of these things, and they have health problems from it, your detox system is backed up and it's not clearing it out. I'm trying to think of other indicators. Bilirubin. So if somebody got serum bile acids tested or fractionated bile acids tested, I think LabCorp does serum bile acids and fractionated bile acids, and that's you test like 6 different bile acids through that test. If those are high, you got a real problem. If those are actually high, you got a real
that's
problem.
That's bile in the blood. That's a blood test.
Bile in the blood,
not pee. Okay, yeah.
So you can measure, serum retinol and serum retinol binding protein and beta-carotene. If those are high, then you guaranteed got a problem. But you got to remember that those lab ranges are made to fit 95% of the people. And it's only 2.5% on either side that they consider abnormal. So if, let's say, there was a population-wide toxicity problem, by definition, the statisticians are going to say only 2.5% on either side have a problem. And so, and the range will shift over time with it. I've been watching the range from LabCorp shift over the years. It used to be like 57.2 was the high end. Now sometimes I get back tests that say 69.4. So it's shifted up by a whole 10 points as the normal range. And I go, the ranges are not based on health at all. The ranges are based on statistics. That's it. So what else? Is there anything else? I mean, I don't measure a lot of these because the people who come to me, we're just going to treat it. Like I tell them, I don't need a serum retinol on you to get you better. We're going to act like it's there. We treat it. They're doing this diet, and then if they start to feel better, then I go, you had it. There you go.
Okay. So okay, gotcha. Yeah, we could touch on the LDL thing a little bit later, but I'd rather do. People are probably wondering, what is the standard low vitamin A diet then? Let's say that we're thinking about trying this or whatever. Obviously, we're not eating orange carrots anymore. Sweet potatoes might be out, and egg yolks might be out. Like, okay, so what do people do?
Okay. Well, our diet, I did a whole live stream on the diet basics in my Love Your Liver program. I'll kind of hit on the highlights. I'll hit on the vitamin A highlights here. I'm not going to hit on all the things that we talk about.
Yeah.
So animal foods that we don't eat: organ meats, liver, kidneys. We don't eat filter organs. They're full of toxic stuff. If we're talking about egg yolks alone, if we're talking about vitamin A alone, egg yolks. I mean, something simple that people can do is, it doesn't, if somebody was like, well, I don't want to get rid of all my egg yolks. Okay. Take out if you're making scrambled eggs, take out half of them. It's not, they still cook up the same. It doesn't really change it. Then we're talking about dairy. Dairy is on its own full of vitamin A and vitamin D. Fortified, it's got even more, because when they pasteurize it, they're heating it, right? Which oxidizes things. It doesn't make anything leave. Remember how I told you vitamin A gets oxidized into worse forms? So if you pasteurize milk, why might pasteurized milk actually be worse for people? Because they oxidize the vitamin A into other forms, and then they measure the vitamin A for retinol, or they measure the dairy for retinol, and they say, well, there's not enough retinol here. We need to fortify it. And then they add more retinol to it. And now you've got an even more toxic milk. And that may be a big part of why pasteurized fortified milk is worse for people.
So if I had a gun to your head and I had 2 glasses of milk, one's raw and one's pasteurized. It sounds like you would be on the raw.
I would. Oh yeah. I
side of
mean,
things.
okay. So I would pick the raw. Absolutely. I'm not. Yeah. That's not even a question. If I had to drink it, I would do raw. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. But you're probably not. Okay,
So
gotcha.
raw is better, but we have a lot of people who come to the program who are, they're on this raw dairy thing, thinking raw dairy is going to fix everything. And then if they start doing my program and they're still insisting on doing the raw dairy, I tell them you're probably going to plateau and it's not going to move until you get that out. And then eventually they take it out and they go, you were right. I had to get that out to really start making progress on my eczema or my psoriasis or whatever. So
you're removing a lot of
vitamin A.
Yeah, you're removing a lot of protein, though, is one issue that a lot of our listeners are going to probably say.
Well,
So what-
okay, so and the other thing that we don't, well, let me throw another one on there, pork. There is so much vitamin A in pork that they actually made a name for it. They called it lard factor before they knew that it was vitamin A in pork. You can go on chemical websites and they will say that lard factor is a synonym for retinol. So pork fat full of vitamin A. Okay.
You took even
I'm still
more
not going to eat.
protein away.
I'm still not going to eat pork anyway. Personally,
Yeah, I mean, like even before looking at any of this, like the fatty acid profile, and we haven't gotten into seed oils and stuff, but like pork's pretty high in the polyunsaturated fatty acids, rancid, all that. So
it's also like
you're just-
low in leucine. It's just not a great
Yeah.
protein.
Right.
Pigs are the bottom feeders of the farm. Like I just don't believe in eating them, honestly.
Is the Pulp Fiction scene or whatever?
I love that scene. That's like one of my favorites. Filthy animal, right? Yeah.
So
yeah, and then
we're stuck with chicken here, or chicken and beef.
oh yeah, the good protein sources in terms of animal sources, it's red meat or poultry. That's generally what we're eating, and I don't have any protein shortage personally from those. So that's most people are like, oh, I can eat red meat and I can eat chicken, and I'm like, and turkey, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna have a turkey sandwich for lunch myself today.
And
So-
you're telling guys that they can eat the meat and they don't need to eat these bitter vegetables and stay healthy.
Yeah. So then we get into
Sold.
the plant stuff. So let's get into the plant stuff.
Okay.
The plant stuff is very simple. In terms of vitamin A, the colors you want to avoid, the part of the plant that you eat. This is an important thing because, like, think of a banana. Banana, the skin is yellow, the inside is whitish, right? So the part of the plant that you eat, that you consume, if it is red or yellow or orange or dark green, high in vitamin A. Okay. The parts of plants that we like, if you're going to eat plant foods, if you choose to do that, then we're looking at white or off-white or light green. That's the simple. So you could be out somewhere and, in a grocery store and look at the plants, and once you know what the inside looks like versus the outside, you can decide whether it's probably high in vitamin A or not. So like a cucumber, you could peel a cucumber and then eat the white part, So there's that. Then in terms of other things that we do tend to favor on the program, there's beans, like just generally, like people like, what kind of beans? I'm like, cooked beans. Like if you cook the beans and they're beans, that's what we're talking about. So we're not against green beans terribly, but like green beans and peanuts, and we don't do soybeans. And then I think there was one other one anyway, but peas, we don't generally do peas. So when you're thinking of beans, like we're thinking of beans, like cooked beans. Whole grains. We do use whole grains, especially oats and barley are some of the most preferred ones because of the beta-glucan and the amount of soluble fiber. Then there's in the fruit category that we don't do a lot of fruits. Bananas, apples, green grapes, pears. That's like the short list of the best fruits on the program. And then
Can I have bread?
Oh, some people do a lot of rice. Rice can have an arsenic issue. It really can have an arsenic issue. It does. Most of them do. The one we like is Lotus Foods because they actually are very transparent on their arsenic testing. And they show it, and I've seen it on hair tests. I can tell if I ask people, are you eating much rice because their level's really low? And they're like, yeah, I eat rice every day. And I'm like, what kind of rice are you eating? And they'll be like, that's when they've usually heard me talk about Lotus Foods. And I'm like, yeah, I have no affiliation with Lotus Foods. They put their testing out there. And I've seen it on hair tests. So, did I cover all those areas? I think I did.
I was asking, can we eat bread again?
Bread. Well, we don't want to eat fortified bread. Generally, anything that's fortified, I don't trust it. I'll put it that way. I don't want anything fortified. But like people who are able to get, if you can get the unfortified flour products, with bread and you can get it organic and you can, if you're doing sourdough and stuff like that, that's great. Like if well, let me hit on gluten for a second real quick. If you know you're sensitive to gluten, don't eat it yet. Like that's easy. Like, doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. Okay. Gluten makes me feel bad. Don't eat gluten. We had a woman who couldn't eat out anywhere because if she might get gluten on like the silverware, like that wasn't washed properly, and it would knock her back for like 3 days. She was super sensitive. Well, when we start, this is the crazy thing about what we're doing now and how it can connect everything. Okay. Researchers could not create a cellular model of celiac disease properly. They could not get the inflammation they needed until they added retinoic acid to it. Well, what is retinoic acid? A chemical peel. It dissolves cells. They had to add the cell dissolver to it to get the inflammation they needed. Okay. I have another research that shows that celiacs, when they eat gluten, compared to control, celiacs dump more bile. Bile has retinoic acid in it. Celiacs dump more bile when they eat gluten. They dissolve their gut more. What do they measure celiac with, right? The villi are gone. They're dissolved away. So then what we found is, as we have several people now who they say that they were diagnosed celiac. Now they can eat gluten. Not tons. They're still not there yet. This is years process. But they can consume gluten without, getting knocked into their bedroom for 3 days. So it's all connected together, the bile and the vitamin A and the gluten. So over time, could somebody with gluten intolerance or celiac get better? Yes. If you're not there yet, then don't do it. So yeah, can you have bread again? Yeah, Mike, I think you did a tweet about that, right? You're like, I can eat bread again, or
most
something.
Of our followers don't. Yeah, most of our listeners don't follow my personal on Twitter or whatever. But so if you want to get in my story, we can. But I've brought bread back. Anyone who's followed us long enough knows that, like you, I've done many of the diets. And not as overachieving as you, but I've definitely been an overachiever. And I got into the keto space. It started because of supplements, just doing supplement reviews. And I do like the exogenous ketones, to be quite honest. Okay. I think there's, it's a cool alternative energy source that doesn't lead to as much ROS as like dextrose does. But I think that led me into a lot of problematic areas, we'll just say. But I've done a lot of the issues as well. And it got to the point where, yes, going low carb solved it was a workaround around some level of insulin resistance that I had. Like, I was horrific on a blood sugar, like a glucose disposal test and everything. And so, yeah, the keto, low carb, paleo, and all that I'd been on for 10 years was a workaround, but it wasn't a solution to the problem. Right. And so yeah, if you want to work around it and you can get your A1C down by going, low carb, that's cool. But then I'm in this space where I was losing muscle and everything. I was losing strength, and I'm aging too, let's be honest. But also I realized that like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's something wrong. Like, why are my ancestors Italian able to eat a crap load of bread and I'm not? There's something else. There's a connective thing missing there. And so I was very excited when I've started going down this rabbit hole that my wife makes some really good sourdough bread and I can handle it. And like the changes have been pretty cool. So like, that's just, what I posted. I was very excited because it's not your diet or anything. I think you have a program, you have you have some minerals and stuff we can get into. I think is important to talk about minerals we haven't talked about. But this dietary like lifestyle allows you to have sandwiches, which is just like kind of cool.
I'm probably going to I may go have a turkey wrap made with an organic tortilla after this. That's probably going to be my lunch. And I might put some hummus on it. So I have the beans and I have the grains and I have the turkey, and it's like, it cool. works. And then I can go work out in like an hour because it doesn't feel heavy. So,
Ben, do you have a question? Real quick?
I do kind of have a question that would,
okay.
I kind of wrapping everything together, right? So if you have a perfect client where they do all of these things and they're able to detox really well, is there a time, because you said early on, it's all about bringing less in than you're getting out. Is there a time where you ever allow them to increase a little bit of that amount of vitamin A that's coming in?
Of the things that they're not supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, frankly, because it was something that you said, like, it's all about that in versus out. Yes. Is there a point where because like you said, there's no diet where there is none of it. Is there ever a point where you get to increase some foods that have some of it?
Well, I don't know if Mike has had this yet, but one of the things I'm just going to say here is, It's never about whether I allow people to. I very much, I understand what you're saying. I just want to say it. I'm trying to teach people how to fish so that they are in control of it. And let's say they go out and they do something silly, you know, and they go, it's their birthday and they're just like, screw it. And they cheesecake and whatever. And they just do all of it. And they're like, boy, I felt like crap the next day. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's how it works, you know, or maybe they don't. This is the interesting thing that we're having. I think Steve Gadecki on Twitter was commenting, and I have noticed this too. I don't say like that people so we don't generally advise alcohol in the program. Mm-hmm. People are still going to drink. You know, they're adults and they can choose to do that and all that stuff. But so what if they choose to? What we're seeing in people who have been doing this for multiple years is that the drinking is almost tedious because it takes, you have to drink faster to even get a buzz. Like your liver's running through it. It's and you're sitting there going, like, I got to drink a 6-pack to get a buzz. Like, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. And then the hangovers are gone. And you know, it's not, and I'm not trying to, so the idea would be, it's like, yes, people can get super ripped. They can do their diet and get all super ripped, and then they can go and eat like crap, and it's not going to change everything, right? It's not going to undo all the work. But can people eventually choose to eat more? Yeah. And then the cool thing is they already know what symptoms are generally going to come on for them. And so if they start seeing stuff creeping back, I have people come back to me who are like, yeah, Dr. Smith, I kind of started slipping on it. I was doing too many things that I shouldn't have done, and I felt it creeping up on me. And I went, yeah, now you know.
Right.
So now I call this like the most, I don't like the word empowering, but I use it as like the most empowering thing to give people, because now they know what makes them feel like shit or not. So, and then they can choose to do it or not, and they just know. So I don't judge anybody for doing anything. They can do whatever they want. I tell people I can't stress about what you eat, because then if I stressed about everybody, I'd be dead.
Sure. So
you do what you want. Sometimes I have people come in consults and they're like apologizing. I've been bad, Dr. Smith. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Like, I'm not here to be mean. There was an old, Ray Peat's mentor got in trouble because he used to whip women who didn't stay on his rice diet plan. Like, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. Ray Peat's mentor had a court case where he was whipping women who didn't stay on the diet plan. It's insane. I forget his name, but yeah. So no, I don't care. I let him do it, but I tell them, yeah, you will get better at detoxing.
Mm-hmm. And Ben, for me personally, okay, just I'm not going to go my whole thing, but I've been doing this for 20 months. I've been low vitamin A. It's one thing that Dr. Smith tweeted about vitamin D. He said, basically, your vitamin D3 is turning you into a statue. Mm. And I was having pain getting up the stairs, like in my right knee. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. I've been following this guy for a little bit. Screw it. I'm going in. And then I got off the D3, and then like a day later, I was like, you know, I'm going all in. And it's been enlightening. Now, 20 months later, and I've been actively avoiding this stuff pretty well. I still got the stuff, and I posted this on LinkedIn and Twitter, my blood work. I'm very open with it. I still have a high retinol level in my blood, actively avoiding it 20 months later. There's enough in the liver for years of this stuff. But with that said, the joints have been better. But a lot of that could have just been getting off the calcifying vitamin D3. We'll never know. Don't care. I'm happier and doing better. So I did want to, I forget why I was quickly.
Were you going to talk about the ferritin?
No, I'm not going to get into that right now.
I was kind of bringing it up.
We can.
Like, looking at Mike, like I you know, for years, Mike and I have, like, when we go on trips, we would eat like whole eggs in the morning. And I just feel that at a certain point, when Mike is detoxed enough, there's no way that he wouldn't be a better swimmer if he was able to get like more nutrition that otherwise would have been utilized incorrectly by his body. At some point, I wonder if there's like.
So Ben, to answer your question, my plan. Okay, so fattening dairy and butter, I think, there's no replacement for butter. So one of my ideas personally, and I still like the Arla Clearways and everything, like some of that stuff's really, really awesome, I think, for some of this. We'd have to see. but for me, like, there's literally two things that I miss if I'm going super hardcore low vitamin A. It is not eggs. Eggs disgust me at this point. I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't miss them. I miss watermelon, which is high in beta carotene. And and actually I didn't this summer though, but also butter. And so for me, and then like certain like fattening dairies. And so if I was going to like bring myself down to a lower level in my blood, my plan is to tinker with how much watermelon can I eat or how much butter can I eat and not feel bad. And like, that's my negotiation with life in my body personally. So that's to answer your question for me personally, Ben, but I'm not there yet because I still got tons of stuff pumping out of my liver, which is what I wanted to share. So yeah, that's my way of answering that. We can keep going with certain things or my story. I do want to get into minerals though, because I think you touched on magnesium, potassium came up a little bit. I think this is one place where we can provide, you can provide a solid bit of education here, Dr. Smith.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, so well, just to the point, Ben, like if people get better and they want to add some stuff like that and they know what it might do if they're getting too much, or if they started again and they go, wow, I don't feel as good on that as I thought I might, then they can just choose. Yeah.
I guess the reason I ask is because I have a hard time believing that they're think of some kid growing up on a farm somewhere that was, you grew up eating beef, chicken, pork, and eggs, and there's decent amount of vitamin A in there. Why don't we have a history of people having vitamin A toxicity before civilized society? And I Mike usually, like I've had these conversations with Mike. Mike would say, like, listen, those kids weren't eating 6 eggs like most people are these days. Like a lot of people like eat a lot of this stuff, and so that's kind of my point. Like, it's at what point can Mike put 2 whole eggs on his breakfast and not get toxic from it, right? Like, when can we be reasonable with our food that we're intaking, like people probably were?
Like, well, at what point could he? I don't. All of it is just a try and see.
Yeah.
Like, there's a weird thing with this program. Mike is not the first person who has said, like, after he's been doing this for a while, that eggs lose all their appeal. Mm-hmm. I have no desire to have eggs anymore. And I did the whole like Rocky, like slugging down 12 eggs at a time and all that. And I used to make eggs, a bunch of mornings, and I'm just done. I'm kind of like, there's something about them that I'm not really interested in. And when we get into the vitamin A toxicity part of them, I mean, they have a lot of vitamin A in them. They've got retinol in them. They've got lutein in them. They've got a lot of choline in them. Choline is absolutely necessary to run the enzyme that stores vitamin A in the liver itself, called LRAT, lecithin retinyl acyl transferase. You have to have lecithin to store vitamin A. So eggs are like a perfect vitamin A delivery system to the liver. If you wanted it, that'd be great. If you didn't want it, it's not great. Yeah. But yeah, we have a lot of guys, older guys especially, like not older, but mature guys like myself and maybe Mike and other guys who are hitting personal bests in the gym and in their stuff. And so a lot of them are just kind of like, well, it seems to be working because I'm in my 40s and I'm hitting stuff that I didn't hit in my 30s. So it's I don't know. It's just I tend to think, well, we'll see get into the minerals now, because this will get into the minerals. I tend to think that, especially, well, we're on a supplement industry podcast, right? The supplement industry is about selling supplements. Buy more of these things. What if the better answer, one of the things that we as Americans, with more is better and bigger is better and all this stuff, we tend to get into, we'd rather add things than take things away. What if the bigger answer was to take away? What if we got a lot more mileage out of taking things away rather than having, let's say, toxins coming in and then adding things trying to get rid of it? Because we'll have people who are like, I'm going to take this pill because it speeds up my liver detox. Does it really, though? Like, milk thistle long term is not good for the liver. This is in the research. Like, people are like, milk thistle is great for your liver. I'm like, no, just look at the long term stuff. It's not good for you. It's doing something. When we talk about herbs as an example, the way I put it is most drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, are based on herbal compounds that are just tweaked so they can get a patent. Okay, so does that mean herbs are weak drugs? Or that pharma is strong drugs? They all have side effects. I mean, I was trained in herbalism in naturopathic medical school. They all have side effects. And the way they try to explain how herbs work is they use the pharmaceutical type mechanisms to explain how the herbs work. So what I say with herbs is that herbs are generally, they have unique compounds in them that are either forcing the body to do something that it doesn't want to do for whatever reason, for whatever wisdom of the body that it has. It didn't want to do it before, and then we take the herb and it forces it to do it, or it either didn't want to do it or it couldn't do it. And so we're just forcing it to do something. How do we know that it's not fixing the problem? Because when people stop the herbs, the problem comes back. Just like when they stop the drugs, the problem comes back, because it never left, because we never addressed the root cause. So when we get into, so it's just an idea of like, I think we get more mileage out of taking things like out of the body. We're not putting them in like toxins, because then you don't have to use nutrients to get rid of the toxin. So not putting the toxin in means the toxin's not there, and you don't lose nutrients trying to get rid of it. So we actually become more efficient on less nutrition when we don't put the stuff in. So then that goes into the minerals. Our list of supplements is way smaller than just about everybody else's out there. We're doing typically, I mean, there may be multiple supplements, but they're typically single ingredient stuff. I've narrowed it down. Like people will talk about these, Mike's talked about this before, like the fulvic acid and the Shilajit and all these trace mineral supplements and unrefined salt and all this stuff. And I go, are y'all really counting up how many of those minerals that you're taking in are radioactive or known toxic metals? Because if somebody's bragging that there's 72 minerals in it, that means you're including like mercury and cadmium and lead and all these things that we don't need. So you're going way down the periodic table of minerals when they're talking about 72 minerals. So I decided like I am much more in the mind of like, if I want water, I want water. Like I don't want other things in my water. I want my water as clean as possible. If I want salt, I want refined, like naturally refined. I know Jacobson salt does it all with water processes. I want it naturally refined. I want sodium chloride. I do not want toxins coming in. I don't want to take an unrefined salt just to get sodium, but then take in like Himalayan pink salt rust or mercury or lead or all these other things. So I want relatively pure things, not chemically purified necessarily, but relatively pure things. So then we get into the minerals that we use. It's a very short list. I mean, there's salt. We do use salt. We use clean salt. And I tell people to go by their taste for salt. Like that's why we give animals salt licks, because animals can determine how much salt they need. I do think there are some people who have trained themselves into eating like almost no salt, and that's bad. And there are some people who they salt their food too much. So we kind of have to judge. You know, if other people around you are constantly telling you eat too much salt, or that you're salting your food like crazy, you're probably doing more than you should. And for people who don't add salt to their food, I tell people that often when I have people who I cannot get better at all, they're usually not salting their food at all. And I'm like, there's something to it. So anyway, sodium, potassium. Potassium is amazing when it's done correctly. This can be bananas and coconut water and maybe some potatoes on occasion. And we do other supplements of potassium. Potassium supplements can get tricky because they're really powerful. So if somebody just jumps in the deep end on potassium, your heart could do some funky things because you can take too much potassium supplements very quickly. That's why they made it only 99 milligrams per pill, is because people have done amazingly stupid things with potassium in the past. Like imagine if they had 1,000 milligram potassium chloride pill. The damage that somebody could do. I think the lowest amount I've seen in the research on a case study of somebody going to the hospital from potassium was 18 grams. And they used to try to, this was one of the earliest paleo things I learned about. These guys, basically the internet, the early internet lore was, cavemen ate like 20,000 milligrams of potassium a day and they didn't salt their food. So we're going to be like cavemen. So they decided to take tons of potassium, or they were trying to take potassium enough that they were cleansing, which is just diarrhea, right? And then they go to the hospital and they'd have problems, or maybe some people died. And then the supplement industry brought those pills down to 99 milligrams. So anyway, potassium is the quickest way for most people. Fixing your potassium intake is the quickest way for most people to feel better on a day-to-day basis. Absolutely. Then there's magnesium. I prefer topical magnesium. I think it raises systemic levels of magnesium about 10 times better than any pill does. And I can show it on hair tests over and over. We make a magnesium lotion that is like, love that stuff. It's amazing. Then we get into what I call those are my electrolytes. Then we get into the big minerals. Big minerals are zinc picolinate. We use zinc picolinate mainly. I don't see other types of zinc. Even I've seen the research on all of them. I've tried all of them. Zinc picolinate is the only consistent one that works for me. We're actually working on some zinc niacinate or zinc nicotinate supplements so we can get flush niacin with our zinc at the same time. That's going to be a really unique thing out there. We're working selenium. very important. Always yeast free. Molybdenum. So selenium, thyroid, right? Selenium, thyroid. Selenium helps with testosterone. Zinc is like everything. And then molybdenum. Molybdenum is the one that people don't know about. A lot of my people come in, they're like, I've never even heard of this. They have a hard time saying it because they've never seen the word before. I always tell people, call it Molly or call it Molly B if you can't say the word. Just whatever you can say. Molybdenum is necessary to run your sulfur detox system. It's necessary to run your xanthine oxidase system, which is part of preventing gout. It's part of processing caffeine. You need molybdenum to run your ALDH system. So if you tend to get really bad hangovers, you may have a molybdenum deficiency. If you get sulfur gas a lot, like the sulfur, the rotten egg smelling gas, you probably got a molybdenum deficiency. And then, so Mike, we didn't talk about this on the show, but iron overload and iron deficiency anemias have both been connected to molybdenum deficiency as well in certain papers.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah. In the last podcast, recently we talked about my ferritin thing and everything, and recently donated blood since the last one with Dom Kuza we were talking about. And yeah, for those who don't know, my joints feel insanely fluid. I was swimming and I was like, dude, I haven't felt like this since a teenager. So I don't know how long this problem has been around. Removing vitamin A and D has helped my joints level up. No more like knee pain, but this is insane. Like
what was your ferritin at?
7. So it was at 770 last December, and then July 720. And so got it down a touch, but that wasn't enough. I should have donated blood the second I saw that number.
I wouldn't have expected that strong a reaction at the level you were at. I would have expected a couple more blood donations to have happened. But the other thing to think about,
I haven't tested since donating the blood.
Okay.
I'm saying
No. I'm just saying, even at those numbers, like usually we see the biggest responses to getting your ferritin down when you get down around like 100.
Okay. Well, I have no clue what it is yet. So.
Well, yeah, no, you may have just. Well, the thing to remember is, yes, you took out a chunk of blood, and yes, it lowered your ferritin. There may have been some other toxin in your blood that they took out. That is what is connected to your symptom improvements. All of a sudden, it could be something else. That's all I'm saying.
I'll be very open with what's going on and everything. And people have seen, like, I have the lower free testosterone because of higher SHBG. And yeah, I'm for the next couple of years, I'm sticking with this program, but the ferritin thing is definitely a piece of the connective tissue. And we are starting to see studies showing that vitamin D3 raises ferritin levels. I don't think ferritin is really fully understood. They say it's like has to do with iron overload and everything. My iron numbers are fine. A lot of people. So since I started posting about the ferritin stuff, I have been contacted by people and they are telling me that they have a similar profile. A lot of them are vitamin D3 users. Some of them have gotten imaging and they don't have iron overload in their liver. I haven't done that imaging yet. And I need to go through my genetic data or whatever and and see if there's a genetic test for the hemochromatosis genetic pattern. But there's a possibility that 10 years of high dosing vitamin D3 has been a part of this issue for me. So I do greatly appreciate for some of the stuff you're posting, because saying that vitamin D3 is probably going to turn off a lot of people listening to this. But for me, it's like, for me though, who cares? There's an alternative. It's the sunshine outside and there's vitamin D3 lamps. So like, if there's a side effect that I could avoid just by like sitting in front of a lamp or going outside, then I'm going to take that route at this point, even if I'm in the supplement industry. Similarly with vitamin A, when I started following you, I jumped into this January 2023. We were chatting with it was one of our writers, and we were like, we never really, like when there was a skin supplement or something, because we never really had anything really good to say about vitamin A anyway. It was like some short-term stuff, but there was nothing like when we're writing a blog post that was that interesting. And then I thought, way back in 2008, when I started PricePlow, you can see it on archive.org, I had written, and let me just quote it. It was, "Do not take beta-carotene if you are a smoker," all capitalized, because beta-carotene in a petri dish shows that it has, antioxidant properties very strongly. And increased serum levels of beta carotene are, have pretty good outcomes in health. However, so they started putting in a lot of beta carotene supplements, giving it to smokers who have problems with, the ROS and everything. And the smokers kept dying and dying and dying. And to the point where okay, it became clear, don't take beta carotene if you are a smoker. But as time has gone on, we are now seeing a lot of meta-analyses showing that it's not as bad as for smokers. But beta carotene in high doses is pretty much bad for everyone in terms of increased fractures, increased lung cancer, increased mortality. And we're sitting here with a lot of beta carotene, high dose beta carotene being used to color supplements because it's a quote unquote natural coloring. And because the FDA says, vitamin A deficiency is no longer a problem, you don't have to label it as vitamin A, even though it does have the retinol activity equivalent, RAE. And to make something orange, a big supplement scoop, you need a lot of beta carotene. So it's possible that we are giving people toxic doses of beta carotene, even worse if they're smokers. And so as I'm listening to you talk about vitamin D, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm with that. I'll just, get sunshine instead. But then I started thinking back, oh man, dude, there was those studies about beta carotene. And then, it was 2008 when I launched PricePlow. Now, since then, there's been even more research. I'm like, holy crap. If nothing else, I'm not saying that you need to go on a supremely crazy Grant Genereux style low vitamin A diet. I'm saying that you probably just don't need to supplement more at this point. We are all very well fortified. And given that 20 months later, I still am not even nearly close to deficiency. I have no clue how much is in my liver. I'm pretty confident that at least you don't need to go overload, and you probably don't need to eat liver. That's where I will be the happy medium. But my personal plan is to continue to kind of pull it out of my liver. And I want to see if maybe free testosterone changes. And ferritin might have something to do with that too. So that's my personal thing. And I'm not going on TRT or on clomiphene with Dr. Cam until I finally explore that. And that's what I'll say. But until then, I have the phenotype that's probably not going to put on much muscle, and I'm cool with that. I am, but yeah, with the joints feeling better, I am actually performing better than I was in years past. And so that's exciting because we're all combating aging and everything. And it's going to happen, so I'm enjoying this, this level of biohacking, but it's kind of hilarious that this level of biohacking involves removing stuff instead of adding more. And so, yeah, Dr. Smith, I do want to thank you very much for just some of these pivotal things that you've said that you probably just whip them out, mentioning the jaundice baby or everything. And these little 3-word things have changed my life in ways. And it's changing the direction of a lot of this I've doing. And quite honestly, I feel great, man. That's what matters. I'm focused and the brain's working well. And for me, the biggest thing I should have said up front, I noticed pretty quickly, I didn't have to wake up in the middle of the night to pee anymore. And so you mentioned the BPH, the prostate thing. I sleep through the night, and I don't know if I had a prostate problem on its way up or whatever, but my BPH is 0.1. So, whatever, I don't know what it was before. Young guys, get your blood tests every now and then, get some work. Cause I have no baselines to go on. How long has my ferritin been high for? No clue. But I will say that I'm sleeping through the night. And that alone, as we know with sleep and everything, has been a tremendous improvement. So I'm going to keep doing this for now. And I'm sure we'll tweak and we'll change. And I'll use this kind of oats or this kind of bean or whatever. But I'm pretty much not going to be going after vitamin A foods until I get it low. And then, yeah, I am going to enjoy me some ice cream and butter. I'll say that, and my watermelon. But we're going to see how much can I have without getting into crazy situations. That's kind of what I want to do personally. So yeah. That's my little story. I don't know if I have anything else to say, but I do appreciate you going against the grain with some of this stuff. And I don't know, I don't think anyone in this industry really needs to go crazy about vitamin A. That's just my thing.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add one thing is whenever the media tries to badmouth the supplement industry, they have 3 of their go-tos. There are absolutely 3 go-tos that they use to try to demonize supplements. They go after beta-carotene. They go after vitamin A, and they go after vitamin E. All fat storable, all fat soluble alcohols. I mean, beta-carotene is a terpenoid, but retinol palmitate, retinol, alcohol. Tocopherol is an alcohol. When we talk about vitamin D, cholecalciferol or calcitriol, these are all alcohols, and they store. and they accumulate. And so, but I mean, beta carotene, vitamin A, vitamin E. This is how they try to demonize the industry. And we don't use vitamin E either. Vitamin E has been shown. I have a mouse study. The mice, when they got vitamin E with the same amount of vitamin A as the other mice, they found 20 times more vitamin A in the liver of the mice that got vitamin E with the vitamin A. So these things are synergistic sometimes in how they do it. With CBD, they found more vitamin A in the liver of the mice that they injected the CBD into. So these things are all working together potentially to become more toxic. So there was the other couple supplements we use. There's like lactoferrin. Really love lactoferrin. The research shows that it can help fix leaky bile ducts. So there's that. Flush niacin is something that we've really been bringing back. We use a lot. For people who can take it, we dose it based on people's tolerance and their threshold and all that stuff. But flush niacin is amazing.
Yeah, when I was getting into the whole FDA trying to take out NMN, I just started listening to you, and I was like, I saw one study showing that NMN contributes to NAD, and then I was looking into NAD plus, and it supports the ALDH enzyme you said, and I was like, holy crap. I know that NMN is not your favorite NAD precursor. Don't care, but I don't love flushing as much as you guys do. Ben might flush once in a while too. But I will say that I was like very perturbed when I saw that these NAD precursors continually getting attacked. And I was like, what is going on here? So like we're seeing all these health benefits from this stuff, and the FDA is trying to go after it, even though they already said it's a legal dietary supplement. I'm talking about NMN. I'm like, this is crazy. And then it turns out that it helps ALDH, which is all this stuff you're talking about at the same time. And so I was just blown away. But yeah, nicotinic acid is at least the most cost-effective form of an NAD precursor.
Well, I think the reason they were able to go after NMN and some of these other newer ones, if you want to call them that, is just because they haven't been around as long. Like there's no way they could take away flush niacin. It's been around too long. It's already been made as a pharmaceutical. It's a slow release. There's just no way. It's
built in, generally recognized as safe in the laws. With NMN, the argument is that there was a drug application, but they won't share the date of the drug application. Nice. It's dirty. I don't know. It's been kind of quiet lately, but either way, I don't see nicotinic acids. It's baked in. It's grass.
And then another thing, we do use vitamin K in some people, but we actually the idea and what we see in people is I have several studies showing that vitamin A pretty straightforwardly depletes vitamin K in animals. So what we see in people is even if we put them on vitamin K based on their symptoms in the beginning, or if they just want to take it, over time, they don't need it anymore, which makes sense because if we make them less vitamin A toxic, then they're not depleting their vitamin K. So yeah, that's the supplement list that we tend to use. And then Mike, I know you like our Keystone Minerals, our little 3 mineral combo kind of thing.
I do. I have it.
But yeah, so that's kind of the basics of what we do. And then I do hair testing and blood testing to assess these things. And we have several practitioners who are working with people. And then there's the Do-It-Yourself Love Your Liver program. And then, we just
okay, so let's talk about, real quickly. Yeah, we're hitting the end of our appointment. I can keep going. But it's, so your program, you say it's a Do-It-Yourself program. What's that called? How do we follow you? How do we find you? What if someone wants to work with you or one of your practitioners? Give us like the pitch.
Okay, the pitch. So the main thing that I'm known for is the Love Your Liver program, which is a do-it-yourself program. So if people are going to go into this program and they're like, I have full access to Dr. Smith. No, that's not a do-it-yourself program. A do-it-yourself program is you're going in there. This is basically the accumulation of my life's work. There's a lot more stuff. People think, it's just vitamin A. I can just avoid vitamin A. I don't need this. There's so much more in this program than just like, don't eat vitamin A. Like I wouldn't charge anybody to tell them that. That's kind of silly. But anyway, that's the do-it-yourself program. If people want my best work, that we do testing and consultation with hair tests, blood tests. I have multiple practitioners I'm training. I'm actually going to do a seminar soon on how to read hair and blood tests and do it, as like I do it. But so one of the things we do that's different, we do the main consultation. We give people 6 months of support in weekly Zoom. They're small group Zoom calls, but people can come in and ask their questions in a Zoom call. And we give people 6 months of access to that with a testing and consultation package, because this is a difficult process. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And I don't expect people to know how to do this right away. So if I don't want to be like a doctor who, this is what I don't like about medicine. So you go see the doctor, right? Whatever, natural doctor, conventional doctor, whatever. They put you on something. Let's say you go home and you don't feel good when you take it, or it doesn't work for you. And then you're supposed to pay the doctor again to go tell them what you gave me sucked. I need something new, right? So they screwed up. They didn't do their job as well as they could have. They didn't give you other options. And now you're supposed to go pay them to tell you a new option. That's silly to me. So if I tell somebody to take some zinc and they're like, wow, I took the zinc and I didn't feel good in some way on it. What do I do? Then I can say, take less, or take a break from it, and then we'll try it again a little later, or we'll try a different approach or whatever. So this is the fine tuning, and my people really do appreciate this, because they're not just thrown out in the cold of like, take these supplements. I mean, how many of us have taken a supplement that we thought was going to be good for us and it didn't feel good at all? It caused us problems, right? So that's I don't want to do that. And even the stuff I use, not everybody gets along with it. I get some of the most sensitive people out there. They're really toxic and they're really sensitive, and they take a drop of something and they're like, I can't do it. Like I couldn't sleep all night. And I go, well, don't take that again. But then we're going to work around it. So that's like, there's that. And then, and people who work with one of my practitioners or myself, they get lifetime access to the Love Your Liver program. So that's just, normally it's a yearly membership, but they get lifetime if you do the consultation package with me. You can find the Love Your Liver program at members.nutritiondetective.com. My main website where the supplements are, where you can, the testing and consultation stuff. Obviously, that's the best work that we do for people. That's at nutritiondetective.com. We have a free course. It's at madnessofmodernnutrition.com. And then I'm on Twitter. Twitter is where I spend most of my time out on the internet. It's I'm NutriDetect, NutriDetect. And that's where Mike and I, retweet each other and all that fun stuff. And I get to see his ferritin thing. And I'm like, Mike, when you posted that, I was like, I've never seen this.
Wait, you really?
Like, that's cool. I have a whole ferritin episode. Ferritin is actually...
I listened to it. Yeah.
So ferritin is pushed out in the bile. And so it is likely that ferritin may be another indicator of how much bile is leaking into your system. And as we get that better, we should see the ferritin go down. And we do see that over time. So
you said you've never seen this? I know ferritin. So I know that Ben...
I hadn't seen the research on ferritin and vitamin D. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't my find. Someone that's what I like. What's cool about Twitter, I know a lot of people listening to this are all on Instagram, and then the business people are on LinkedIn and stuff. Twitter, we get to share links to studies. And so I mentioned this, someone argued, another person came back and said, actually, look at this study from 2024. Nice. These women got vitamin D3 and their ferritin levels went up. And you multiply that by 520 weeks, which is how long I was on high dose vitamin D. And I'm like, maybe this caused it. But yeah, I don't know.
Vitamin A is shown to increase iron absorption too. Mm-hmm. So we have this, I used to actually, my theory used to be called, what did I call it? The lime scale and rust. So one of the early names of my approaches was the lime scale and rust theory of like calcifying and rusting iron.
Okay.
So it was like high calcium and high iron would tend to go together. And then now we see like vitamin A and copper toxicity go together, and the whole thing, it just, and then your vitamin D supplements raised ferritin, vitamin A increases iron absorption, like all these things start to fit together.
Wow.
That we're doing too much of a lot. Like I love that thing in what was it, forgetting Sarah Marshall, the surfing instructor, where he's like, do less. just do less. And that's what I feel like sometimes I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, just do less, and we don't have to. I think there's a lot more benefit in less toxins in than there is in forcing more nutrition or nutrients in. Mm-hmm. Like if we do need a certain amount of nutrition to run, like that's just to run. But then I don't know that more makes it better, but I do know that less toxicity is always better. So we kind of prioritize.
You can't go low protein, but
no, not going low protein ever. No.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. And I think that's kind of a big shift in my mind over the last couple of years. And becoming older helps with that and stuff. But being in the supplement industry, when it's like not add more, like you've kind of alluded to, that was a big shift in the mind, here in this industry.
Hey guys, I know you guys can keep going on.
Oh.
I have to go, but like, please, I mean, if you want to enjoy the rest of the conversation for everyone, I mean, I just have a hard stop at 5.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
Thanks, Garrett. I really appreciate the time. This has been really helpful. As someone who didn't really understand all of it, but wanted to know more, I got a ton of information out of this, and it definitely helps me. Thank you.
Awesome. You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Thanks for having me on.